So we took our shop round the corner to our printing works and our music shop, and we redesigned it, and that was owned by one old lady, Mrs. Grosvenor. She was 90, she died. That was then taken over by managing agents for the free market. And the rent went up from 7,500 to 35,000. We offered double, but they wouldn't listen, and the shop closed and remained closed for 8 years. That was the free market in action. There was no government pressure on rents at that time. Where are the ethics in that sort of thing? Where good people were put out of jobs, myself included, because these rents were allowed to get away, these free marketeers were allowed to get away with such way. And the name of the man who took over for Pentos was Terry Mayer. I looked him up on the internet, he seems to have disappeared, because of course he got all the bumps and the bonuses for taking over just about every shop in London and then did a runner. Free marketeers have to live, I'm afraid, with contradictions and dubious sentiments. And I have no doubt at all that they genuinely believe and are convinced that their ideas are morally superior to them. They're entitled to hold that conviction, and socialists would defend that right. One of my oldest, most treasured and respected friends is a free market libertarian. We applaud their readiness to debate the case and respect their sincerity. But the problem for myself and other socialists is that we just do not recognise the market in the way you describe it, John.
Yeah.
It is truly, to us, an alien world. Frankly, were Diogenes searching for an ethical market, I fear he would contract the same difficulty he encouraged in finding an honest man. Few would deny that industrial capitalism has brought about astounding developments in technology and medicine, agriculture and communications. To some of us, those have brought welcome benefits. But the priorities at the heart of the system are false, depending on the continual exploitation by few over many. In the USA, and here are some other figures, not from their Heritage Foundation, in the USA, the flagship of capitalism, currently, the richest 1% receive 20% of the income, and the poorest 20%, only 3.4%. The primary reason for bankruptcy, even than those with insurance, is medical bills. Can you imagine that? Not mortgages, medical bills, the primary reason for bankruptcy, even if you have insurance. When George Bush came to power, 40 million could not afford insurance. Now it is 45 million, so much for things getting better. Some of you may have seen on the television the so-called sheriff sales which are going on, where the sheriff comes along and throws the people out onto the street in order to sell their house. In the USA today, 37 million remain below the official poverty line. Internationally, 1.4 billion are below that line, which is 1.25 US dollars a day. 1.2 billion people in the world have no access to safe water. 9.7 million in 2006. 9.7 million children died before they even reached the age of 5. Such figures shame us as a species. They make me ashamed to be part of this world, that we can allow that to go unrecognised and unchallenged largely. During my lifetime, I have heard so many promises of how capitalism would solve such obscene anomalies. But as production and distribution capabilities have not only reached, but passed the point where that became possible, little has changed. It's always promises for tomorrow, but hard times today. Some of you may remember the one politician I ever remember saying it differently, Harold Macmillan, when he quoted Coleridge, or somebody, may not be Coleridge, French, he's too good. He said, again, the speech of Toy, seasons of mists and mellow fruitfulness. We've had the mists. Now for the fruitfulness. I couldn't wait for it. Of course, it never came. With the undiminished possibility of a nuclear catastrophe and the unrelenting environmental profligacy, neither likely to change significantly under capitalism. There's no use tinkering with a fatally flawed system. Only a society where production is for use, not profit. A socialist society offers the radical approach necessary to eliminate forever the conflict, division, exploitation, and unacceptable suffering that afflicts so many millions in the world here and now. Don't be bamboozled. Nothing within capitalism, nor capitalism itself, is immutable. But should it have a future? That was the question. There is a wonderful book, and I'm finishing now on time. There is a wonderful book published several decades ago with hauntingly beautiful photographs by Edward Curtis. It is about Native American Indians. And here are some words spoken 150 years ago, which appeared in that book. We know that the white man does not understand our ways. One portion of land is the same to him as the next, for he is a stranger who comes in the night and takes from the land whatever he needs. The earth is not his brother, but his enemy, and when he has conquered it, he moves on. He treats his mother the earth and his brother the sky as things to be bought, plundered, sold, like sheep or bright beads. His appetite will devour the earth and leave behind only a desert. That is modern day capitalism in a nutshell. And that is the answer to the question.
John now will respond with 5 minutes, and then Richard another 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. Well, that was very illuminating. I spoke right at the beginning about the Nirvana fallacy, and if everything Richard said was accurate, and I don't believe it is, but if it was, frankly, it just wouldn't prove anything. All it would prove is that capitalism is imperfect. The question is there a viable alternative? I don't believe there is. And that, fundamentally, is the key point. I mean, you can list all the things that are wrong with capitalism you want, but is there anything better, is the question. And nobody in the history of humanity has ever put forward a better alternative. I mean, that may be a great disappointment. In a sense, it would be wonderful that there was a better alternative. But there's no evidence whatsoever that there is. Well, let me address some of those points. And I want to do it in a slightly roundabout way. By talking about, what I would say, some of the problems of the market, like some of the reasons why we might not like the market. And I think one reason why we might not, and I suppose Richard, you did allude to this in part, is that market societies tend to be less equal than non-market societies. That clearly is true. We need to ask, however, why should this be the case? Why are market economies more unequal than non-market economies? And secondly, we need to ask, does it matter? Should it concern us? Well, let's ask firstly, why are capitalist societies, market societies, more unequal than alternatives? Well, the reason for that is simple, that economic growth cannot happen simultaneously. We cannot simply rise everybody in society upwards in one. Economic growth, everywhere it's happened, has happened, if you like, in stages. One group of people go first, another group goes second, so on and so forth.